What's up YouTube, Jeff back again. Today I have a very exciting Samsung video for you guys, and today one of my favorite videos to make every year, which is the first things to do with your new Galaxy S25 Ultra. I make this for every new flagship Samsung phone that comes out. Always get a lot of people, who are new to the channel, who bought one of the new phones and they want to know what should they do when they unbox it, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. As usual, I have a little keep list here, and I also have it all listed down there, so you have timestamps and everything if you want to jump around. Before we get started, I want to remind you, make sure you check out our website, sammyguru.com, for continuous coverage of all Samsung content throughout the lifetime of owning your Samsung phone. If you haven't ordered yet, you can also order a Galaxy S25 Ultra and get a free mystery box from Sammy Guru. You do have to use our affiliate link to order. That's how we fund the program. Just tap the orange banner, purchase with one of our affiliate links here. We've got all three of the S25 models, and then fill out a verification form with your shipping address, and we ship those out. They start shipping on February 3rd. I've already verified the first set of orders. Tracking numbers will go out on February 3rd. February 10th, we'll have the next set going out. So I'll put that in the pinned comment description if you're interested. Well, let's jump into it right away. The very first thing you should do with your Galaxy S25 Ultra, which you probably did during your setup, is make sure you set up your security settings. But there's one thing you can do to actually improve the fingerprint accuracy if you use biometrics. So if we go down security and privacy, obviously you have a lot of options in here, and I'll talk about a couple of these other options in just a second. But if you go into lock screen, let me put in my pattern. If you have fingerprints on, and of course you can also set up face recognition, and choose your other, method that you want to use, PIN, password, pattern, which is what I tend to use. And if you go into fingerprints though, one thing you can do is you can add redundant fingerprints. So I have fingerprint 1 and 2, those are both my thumbs. But what you can actually do is you can add this fingerprint again. So like I could add my thumb a second time as a third finger. So now I've added this thumb twice, and that actually helps with the accuracy of the fingerprint scanner, and it makes it a little bit faster. You can also check fingerprints that you've added, turn on or off fingerprint unlock, turn fingerprint always on, so even when the screen is off, and I love that feature. It's on by default, thankfully, so you don't have to worry about that. You can show the icon when the screen is off on always on display, tap to show, or never. I always like to leave it on the always on display. And of course, you can turn the animation when unlocking on or off. But I highly recommend setting up redundant fingerprints, particularly for your dominant fingers, which for me are both of the thumbs there. Also, inside the screen lock settings, you can also go in here and make sure that you have lost device protection on using either Find My Mobile and theft protection. You can see right here, theft detection lock. These various features are not on by default, and they are very good features that you can enable within your Samsung account. And remote lock will allow you to remotely lock your phone if it gets stolen, for instance. So these are features you definitely want to turn on as well, in addition to setting up something like a fingerprint or face scanning inside the security settings. And these lost device protection features, not all of them are on. Only the Find My Mobile is on by default. The theft protection features, you actually need to go in there and enable those yourself. Up next, let's talk about navigation settings and circle to search. So you'll want to choose your navigation settings out of the box. Your Galaxy S25 Ultra is going to come with the standard 3-button navigation. But if you go into the display settings, you can scroll down to navigation bar, and in here you'll find the option to turn on the swipe gestures setting. So buttons, this is the default, where you've got the buttons set up at the bottom, the 3 buttons, recent apps, back, and home. I highly prefer using more options if I'm going to use buttons, and I can customize my button order as well. But my favorite thing is the swipe gestures. And with swipe gestures, you also have a couple of other great options that you can enable. If you go into the more options section, you can turn block gestures with S Pen, prevent the S Pen from being used for navigation gestures. I don't mind that, because sometimes when I use the S Pen, I want to go back home and I do utilize the gesture. And you can also play with the gesture sensitivity so that you know how sensitive it'll be to triggering the back, the recent apps, and the home gestures. That can be particularly useful if you use something, like the edge panels over here. You don't want it to, be too sensitive. You can turn this down. I personally find the default to be pretty good though, so you may not need to play with it too much. You can also decide if you want to have circle to search on or off, touch and hold the home button or navigation handle to search using content on your screen. You just hold this down if you're using gestures, and this is going to get you circle to search. Now it explains how it works and all those kind of things. You can just go ahead and circle anything on your screen and it will search it for you. You'll get information from Gemini there at the top when it does it. I love circle to search. It was a feature introduced with the S24 Ultra last year. There's really no reason for me anyway to turn this off, but if there's some reason you don't want to use it, you don't like Google, and you don't want to give them your information, obviously, or share what's on your screen, then you can always turn that off, and that is an option. Up next, I highly recommend, this is a personal choice, but in One UI 7, you now have the option to use the vertical app drawer, which of course, I know many of you who are hardcore fans of my channel have been wanting for a long time. And that is not the default though. I thought it was going to be the default out of the box on the S25 Ultra, and unfortunately it isn't. So if you want the vertical app drawer, you've got to go in here and go to the 3-dot settings and go to sort. Now here's the really annoying thing. If you want to sort into the vertical app drawer, you have to use alphabetical order, which is actually my preference. But if you like the custom order, where it orders them by the recency of your apps being downloaded, then this always still uses the traditional horizontal scrolling where you have multiple pages. You cannot use vertical when you have this on. I really, really hate this for people who like the custom order but still want the vertical app drawer, but I like alphabetical order, so it's not a huge deal for me. But you should change this if you want vertical. I think it's best, and it's also faster to go through your apps. Now, if you go into settings here, you can also do some other cool things. One of the things that you can change here is the app size, app labels, and turn widget labels on, which is something that I also recommend playing with here. And you can also change the grid size. So if you go into the app screen, you can change this from 4 columns to 5 columns, which then gives you an even easier time navigating through your apps along with the vertical app drawer. Display settings, let's go back into display settings because there's a lot of stuff there that I want to talk about. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't talk about because I wanted to talk there about the vertical app drawer. Obviously, you've got light and dark mode. You can play with your brightness. If you have adaptive brightness off, you can turn extra brightness on so you can get into that extra brightness bar up here. I turn adaptive brightness off for the video because it just makes the video look better. Motion smoothness, you can switch between adaptive and standard. I mean, obviously you paid a lot of money for the Ultra. I would say leave on the adaptive smoothness so you get up to 120 hertz refresh rate. Eye comfort shield, so at night, if you're reading, don't strain your eyes. Adaptive color tone, this is like Apple's True Tone deal where it can yellow or blue the screen a little bit more, change the white balance. I don't like it because it messes with my eyes a little bit, so I turn it off. Vivid screen mode, you can either do vivid or natural if you don't like those really saturated Samsung colors. If you're in vivid, you can play with the white balance, and you can also tune not only the vividness amount, but also the white balance RGB. This is why I love Samsung. You have all these options. No other manufacturer gives you the control. And every time someone complains about something, they try to respond. They try to do their best really to respond to customers. I know they've removed some things over the years, but when it comes to software features, they really try to respond and give you a lot of options to tune things the way you want. Change your font size and style. If you look here inside the font style, you've got Samsung 1, Gothic, Bold, and Roboto. I actually like Samsung 1 quite a bit. You can choose bold font and also play with the font size down here. If the font size is too small, too big. Screen zoom. Now this one's the really important one, screen resolution. This year, Samsung introduced a brand new feature with the S25 Plus and the S25 Ultra, which is the ProScale technology. The ProScaler, which uses AI to basically upscale your content. It was originally introduced on Samsung's televisions and now it's on their smartphones. But this feature only works in QHD Plus, which is 3120 by 1440 resolution, does not work in the other two. The only problem with that is this is what you get out of the box is FHD Plus. So if you don't go in here and change this, which I've already done, you're not going to take advantage of that ProScaler technology. And it is very impressive. I've noticed a huge difference between the S25 Ultra and the S24 Ultra when it comes to kind of really looking at the colors and the color accuracy and just how much the images and videos jump off the page, particularly with HDR content. You can also change your camera cutout here, your screen timeout, which I always set to a large number because I do videos, but probably should change that, to the default 30 seconds if you're not doing anything that requires this. You've got edge panels, your navigation bar, which we talked about, accidental touch protection here, which is something that you should enable so it doesn't accidentally activate your screen while it's in your pocket, your purse, whatever. Touch sensitivity, you can turn the touch sensitivity, you can take this, turn this up if you're using a screen protector. Now, I don't use a screen protector, so I don't turn this on, but if you have a tempered glass or even a plastic one, it's probably a good idea. Show charging information, so estimated time to full when the always on display is off or not shown. So this is something I leave on as well because I like to have that information, how long until it's full. And then you got your screensaver, which, I never really use a lot, but this is a pretty cool one. The color screensaver, if I was going to use one, that's probably what I would utilize right there. Up next, let's talk a little bit about wallpapers. So if we go into the home screen, long press, go to wallpaper and style here. You can do quite a few things here. First, you can dim the wallpaper when dark mode is on. I like to turn that off because I don't like the way it looks. It's a personal opinion. You can change your wallpapers, of course. You can go in here. You've got the interactive wallpaper that comes with the device. If you guys are curious about my wallpaper, this is from the Inspira Casas wallpaper pack, which is a company I founded with 1.4 Studio developer Vuk Ondrik, who makes icon packs and wallpaper apps for Android, including Thematica and 1.4 Wall. It's available on our website. I'll drop the link below if you guys want to check it out. You can also edit your color palette. It is not on by default, and you can also apply this to the icons as well, which I typically don't do, but you can choose the color palette that you want from right here, which will theme your quick settings, panel, and all that good stuff. So that is not on by default, so you definitely want to do it. When you do change your wallpaper, you also have the option down here to do some AI stuff. So you've got home and lock screen. You can do a generative wallpaper. This was introduced last year. It's basically the same. You know, they do have some more categories now. They got bloom, soft focus. There's a couple here and a couple different, you know, styles that were not there last year, but it's pretty similar. They've also improved the photo ambient wallpaper, which will allow you to basically, you know, do weather on your lock screen. So you need like an outdoor. It says based on the default location in the photo app. The issue is with this that unless you live a place where there's like interesting weather, it may or may not really be a very cool effect to apply. You can see here how it shows you like the rain here being applied. Obviously it doesn't rain a lot in Arizona. This is just showing you a preview of what it would look like. It never really snows in Phoenix, but you can certainly do that. And it is a cool feature. Last year they introduced that. You've also got some other stock wallpapers there. You've also got dynamic lock screen. Every time you turn on the screen, you'll get a new image, and they got a bunch of categories for this as well. So you want to choose your wallpaper, choose your style, choose your creative style from inside that menu. And again, the Inspira Costas pack is very cool. Also, Thematica and 1.4 Wall, I highly recommend because I work with Vuk and I think his apps are absolutely fantastic. The next one is the lock screen and AOD customization. You'll want to set that up as well. Now, if you go to your lock screen here in One UI 7, you can go ahead and long press on your lock screen. And once you do that, you'll have a lot of options to customize. There's some things here that are new. First of all, if you tap on your actions here, you used to just be able to put apps here. You can now put a bunch of different actions. There's a couple that I really like, which is flashlight. And then over here, also the QR code scanner. I don't typically go directly from my lock screen to the camera as much. Plus you can use the double press shortcut on the button, which we'll get to in a second. So I usually don't keep that there. You've also got, you can get suggestions down here, basically from looking at what you already have set. And it'll give you like some different styles. Like look at this one. This is pretty cool right here. Like it'll like edit your wallpaper, crop it in a different way. This one's kind of weird, but the other ones are pretty cool, honestly. So a couple of the suggestions they give you are really nice. You can frame it, get a different effect. They've got some new clock styles this year, which there's quite a few that I actually really like. The ones that I really, really like and I was using on the One UI 7 beta is this one and this one. Both of them are very, very cool. I think I like this one perhaps better. And once you do this, you can show weather information and date above the clock. You can also make it larger if you want. You can make it as large as you want on the lock screen. Add widgets. So you can add widgets here just like we could last year. I don't usually add a ton of widgets, to be honest. Modes and routines are kind of an interesting one that I might consider adding here. And then the Samsung Health widget, because you can get like your daily activity on the home screen right there. But the customization on the lock screen is just very, very in-depth. Of course, you can change the color of everything here as well. I think white probably will look better on this particular lock screen just to make it show up a little better. And so then you have your widgets there, you have all your information, you have your quick shortcuts there at the bottom as well on the lock screen. Now, if you want to turn on the AOD, of course, the AOD is actually going to be in here. So if you go to the lock screen and AOD, oh, one other thing. Contact information can no longer be added from the lock screen editor. You now have to put this here. So if you want to put like, you know, a word, or you want to put like, you know, your contact information for in case someone loses, you know, you lose your phone, someone can see it on the lock screen. You have to add it right there. You can turn off touch and hold to edit here as well, or the unlock transition effect. You can also turn on your always on display. Now here inside the always on display, I really like to have this turned on for always or scheduled. I don't like having tap to show because I like to be able to always see the information. Now, you also have this new option inside always on display. There's a couple of them. One, the erase background. This one was turned on last year with the S24 Ultra. If you have something like, you know, a portrait, you can basically make it stand out by erasing the background. It's kind of like, you know, the depth effect that Apple introduced on the iPhone. You can get that in here. But now this year, you also have the now bar, and you need to go in here and kind of customize your now bar settings. Now this just determines if the now bar is available on the always on display. You actually customize the now bar settings back here. So if you go in here you can see everything that you can have. Sports from Google, Maps, Samsung Health, Interpreter, Clock, Voice Recorder, Notes, Emergency Sharing. And as you add new applications, if they're eligible for the Now bar, they will also start appearing here, and then you can add and turn those on here. I turn on everything that's available for what I have here. Your music automatically will play by default, so you don't really have to edit that. You don't have to do that manually, because down here you have media player and current mode. You can also turn those off here, but they're not lumped in with the apps. This means any media player like Spotify, YouTube Music, Samsung Music, whatever. You can also turn the Now Brief on or off. The Now Brief is also not edited from here in terms of the content. That's actually edited inside Galaxy AI settings, and we'll get to that in just a second. But basically, these are all your AOD settings. You can set up a schedule. I mean, this is what I'll probably do later, is actually set up a schedule, because you can go in here, schedule when you want it on to off. 7 to 12 is actually a pretty good time for me, my general schedule for my sleep. Let's go ahead and segue right into the Now Brief settings. So if we go into the settings here and go to Galaxy AI, you'll see down here towards the bottom, one of the new features with the S25 series is the Now Brief. This is where you can turn on or off the content to include, and also expand the Now Brief without unlocking. So basically this you might want to turn off if you're worried about people viewing your information while your phone is locked, because this is going to show your Now Brief and you can expand the info in it without unlocking. So if you don't want people to be able to read the info, some of that could be personal, like flight information, etc., turn that off. Go to the content to include. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You got Samsung Health and Wellness, travel, like again, flight information, events and tasks, routines, digital well-being, communication, so all your messaging, moments, gallery stories, traffic updates, news, smart home, music and podcast, and also recommendations for YouTube Shorts, which I think is really cool. But you can turn off the stuff you don't like. My suggestion would be to use it for a while, and you have the Now Brief right on your home screen out of the box here. You can see this guy. Let me see if I can go ahead and show you guys my Now Brief. I don't think there's anything too crazy here. See here my screen on time, some information about the Chiefs, a playlist, a flight information that I'm tracking, and here you can see the weather. So this is the midday one. They give you one for morning, and then you got one throughout the middle of the day, and then one at night. I personally really like the Now Brief so far. Highly recommend curating the content you want, and then after you use it for a little bit and it learns more about you, you can revise it and see if there's anything that you might want to turn off inside the settings. You should also check out the other Galaxy Eye features and turn on or off some really key stuff. So if you go in Galaxy Eye, there's a few things. First of all, Call Assist. Basically, one thing they did here is they removed some of the Call Assist features from the AI menu. This only has Live Translate in here, which you can, tweak the Live Translate options. You can, mute your voice or the other person's voice, etc. However, one option that I really liked from the calling settings is if you go into the phone, you also have text call, and text call is not shown in the Galaxy Eye menu. I don't really know why, because I feel like this is the most useful feature when it comes to the calling that AI can help with. This will answer your calls for you. You can set your quick responses. You can also determine if you want to play the other person's voice. So basically, Bixby will answer the phone for you, and it'll get information about why the other person's calling. You can see it on the screen, and you'll be able to decide if you want to answer or not. Highly recommend turning this on, choosing a voice that you like. You can download more of them. You can even go with the speech rate. You can make it faster or slower. And over here, set up some quick responses that you're going to use, particularly with friends, family, things like that. Go in and add specific quick responses. Now, the other thing that's new to certain regions, this was on a lot of different Galaxy devices in the past, but in certain regions like the US, it was never here. That is the call recording feature. So if you go in here, you can go ahead and turn on call recording. It's actually on by default, and you can turn on transcript assist, which will auto-transcribe calls for you, and they'll save transcripts of those with the recording for you. So this is absolutely fantastic. I love the fact that we now have call recording available in the US on our Galaxy smartphones, and we can utilize this feature. Now, of course, it does warn the other person that you're going to be recording them. That's to basically make sure it complies with all US laws. That's one of the reasons they didn't bring it before, because they were worried about that. So there is that. So you can't really record without the other person knowing, but you do have call recording now, as well as the text call feature that I just talked about. Up next, let's talk about motions and gestures, which is under the advanced features. So if we go down to advanced features here, there's actually quite a few things that I want to talk about. First of all, under Bixby, you can go here, you can change actually under Bixby in Labs the wake up phrase. I changed the wake up phrase to the name of my website, which is Sammy Guru. It automatically then will initiate. So you can change that under Bixby. You can also turn on offline processing and a lot of other things with Bixby. Now, I'm going to get into the side press button settings in a bit, but Bixby is no longer the default when you press the side button. You now have this digital Galaxy AI assistant that's powered by Gemini. It's actually a kind of a mashup of Bixby and Gemini together, the intelligence of Gemini for search, but the on-device processing of Bixby. So you definitely want to go in there and maybe tweak some of your settings for that. But keep in mind, the Bixby you get with your voice command when you say Sammy Guru, that's not going to be quite the same UI and assistant that has Gemini integrated as when you press down the power button. Now, I think this is a little disjointed, and I want to do some more testing. I don't know why Samsung didn't streamline this more. They talked about kind of how Bixby and Gemini could work together, but why don't we get the same kind of functionality when we say the trigger phrase versus just pressing the side button? Now, if you go into Labs here, you can turn on multi-window for all apps, which I highly recommend. Suggested replies, which is something that they started rolling out recently. You'll get suggested replies powered on your Samsung keyboard for all of your messaging. Dark mode apps, this has only been YouTube for a long time, but you can force dark mode there. Down here, side button, double press, Samsung Capture. This is one really cool new feature. We've always had the ability to use Smart Select directly by just triggering it from, for instance, the side menu here on the Edge panel. But now if you go in here, the double press menu, you can actually trigger AI Select within Smart Capture just by doing the double press of the side key. So if I double press, it's now going to access Smart Select, which of course I could then use my S Pen, whatever else I want to do to kind of get information from the screen, crop it, and then use that in other applications. That's a new option, the AI Select. Screen recorder screenshots have always been there. Now, of course, you might still like to double press for camera, and you can do that as well. The long press is set to activate your digital assistant, which is Google by default. And you'll notice it doesn't really say here that this is a Bixby Google mashup. It just says Google. So I still want to dig some more and figure out what's going on, but it can integrate with some of your Samsung apps. So it's kind of like a mashup of the two. It may just be that it's completely Gemini and not really Bixby at all. It's just that they integrated those Gemini extensions, which is kind of what I'm starting to think. Because look, you can actually trigger Bixby instead of Gemini or power off menu if you want. So I'm going to leave it here for a while. I'm going to use it as the default. I always usually change this to power off, because when you long press, then you just get the power off menu and you don't have to hold the volume down and power off button at the same time to get your menu to restart and do all that stuff. They also explain to you now a little bit better about how to do that to power off your phone. Tells you can also use Bixby to do that as well. Multi-window, highly recommend turning on these gestures. Swipe for split screen, swipe for pop-up view. That means you can swipe from the top and go ahead and get yourself a pop-up window, something I'm using here with the Google Keep document as we go throughout the video. What else we got? Motions and gestures. Lift to wake. I personally don't like that feature. It's off by default. Double tap to turn screen on, double tap to turn off. I love that, use it all the time. Mute with gestures. Palm swipe to capture. You can basically swipe with your palm and it gets a screenshot, as you guys see right there. I just took a screenshot. Love that feature. It's been on Samsung for a long time. One-handed mode. I don't use that a lot because I use One Hand Operation Plus from GoodLock, so you can turn that on to make it more reachable. Screenshot and recording settings. You can go in here, edit the format and the quality of all your screenshot and recordings. Turn on taps and touches if you do tutorials like I do a lot. Video brightness, normal or bright. You can turn this on, and also which apps you want to utilize. Super HDR, automatically adjust the display to show the full range of colors and contrast in pictures taken with Galaxy devices. This definitely pops with the Pro Scaler, as well as the brightness inside actual videos, the HDR video. Galaxy Avatar, which is the new name, basically just for the AR emoji. That's what they called it last time, but now it's Galaxy Avatar. Dual Messenger, still have that there if you have two like Facebook Messenger accounts. And Game Booster has some new options as well. Go in here and change your game optimization. Also here, gaming motion smoothness now 120 hertz, which is awesome. And if you have a USB power delivery charger connected, you can also turn this option on here to pause power delivery charging when gaming. So some cool new stuff. I'll be diving into all of those features with Game Booster as well in a future video. The last thing I would recommend is make sure that you're happy with the app grid size. If you go in here to settings, there's a few things here that I recommended before, but you want to change your home screen grid. I personally like to have the largest grid possible. That's one thing you can do within here. You can also change your folder grid. You now can have large folders, so you can change this to 4x4. So if you create a folder on the home screen, you can now change this as well. So if you go here, let's just create a folder. Let's just do Slack and messages together. You can now, you see how I just got 2 apps there. You can now, if you long press on this, enlarge the folder, but you notice you have to have space. So if you have it below there, there's not enough space. Now you can go up here and enlarge the folder. So you can create larger folders if you want as well, which is something that One UI 7 brings. And in addition here, you now have the ability to go in and change the color, and you can actually use a color picker to change the color of that folder, to whatever that is that you want. You can also apply the brand new widgets once you get all of your settings that you're happy with. There's quite a few nice new widgets, including battery. We've got brand new battery widgets that look very nice on this particular version of One UI. There's some brand new calendar widgets, which I think look very nice. You can peruse all of the brand new Samsung widgets. There's a lot of new widgets that have been added for One UI 7.0, and they've all been redesigned. So I'd highly recommend trying some of those out. And of course, if you have Good Lock, there's some brand new Good Lock widgets as well, which I showed in a previous video. But for those of you who are new, we'll get into Good Lock in a future video, which is a little more advanced. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Those are the first things to do with your Galaxy S25 Ultra. I probably did more than 10. Usually I call it first 10 things, but it's probably like 15 or so. So maybe I won't put the 10 in there this year. If you guys did enjoy, subscribe to the channel. A lot more great content. Make sure you check out sammyguru.com. And if you haven't pre-ordered yet, you can use our links there to get the free mystery box here in the US. Appreciate you guys check out this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.